In this lecture, we're going to look at signals and slots in Qt and different ways you can connect things. In Qt, a signal is a way for Qt to let you know that something happened. For example, when you click a button, there is a signal that is emitted that is called clicked. And the way you use that, you connect that signal to a method that you want to be called when that signal is emitted, or when that event happens. It's really a way to do event handling in Qt to respond to events. And there are three different notations we can use to connect signals to slots, or to connect events to event handlers in Qt. This is another way you can say that. Okay, the first way is string notation. You're going to see it used like this, connect. And they have these strings called signals and slots. And you use this to connect the signal to the slot. We're going to use this shortly in a Qt application. The other one is a functor notation. And you notice that inside we use class names and double columns and your slot. And for the signal, you do the same thing. You do a QPushButton class and you put the signal that you want to use like this. This is really a notation to do things. But these notations have different benefits, and we're going to look at that in a few minutes. The other notation is the functor notation, but this one is going to use lambdas, okay? And by now you are familiar with lambdas and how they work. And the way you do that, it's really a functor notation that you use here. But for the slot, you specify a lambda function that can be called right away when this signal is emitted. I don't expect you to understand this fully by now. I just want you to know the different notations that are available when you are working with signals and slots in Qt. Right now, we're going to go to Qt Creator and start using these things so that you get familiar with them. Okay, here we are in Qt Creator. We're going to create a new widget application. We're going to call it 2.3 signals and slots. We're going to save it to the usual location. Hit next. Choose widget application. This is what we want for now. And now that we have the application, we want to go to the form here and put two things. Okay, one is going to be a button that we're going to click. And the other is going to be a label. Okay, so let's search for a label. We want to make it big so that we see our text better. And we want to change the font for this label here. We find the properties for this label in the window here, and we scroll down until we met this font property. Click on this 3 dash here, and we increase the font, for example, to 16 and see what we get. I like this. I think this is good. So far, when we wanted to respond to button clicks, we had to come here and click to go to slot. So this is actually Qt itself doing the connections for us. But now we are getting better at Qt development, and we are going to connect the signal to the slots ourselves. So how do we do that? The first thing you should make clear is what you are trying to connect. We're trying to connect the signal from this button. This button is going to emit a signal whenever you click it. And we want to respond to that click in our C++ class for this widget here. And when we get the signal, we are going to do something. We are going to change the text inside this text label. We've been doing something similar, like showing a Q message box with some message. But right now, the important thing is to understand how you connect this thing, signals and slots. Okay, so let's do that. The first notation that we're going to use is the string notation. Okay, and to use that, you have to go to the header file of your widget and define a slot. You define a slot by saying something like this, private slots, I guess, yes. And you have to say if your slots are public or private. In this case, we want to make them private. And right now, this slot is going to be called change text. And you notice that this slot here is really nothing but a function. The next thing we want to do is to generate the definition for this slot in the CPP file. And Qt can also help in that. In that, we can click on this slot here, do refactor, and add definition in widget CPP. Okay, let's click that, and you see that it defines the slot for us. So what remains by now is to connect these two things. So what are we connecting? Let's review that. We are connecting a signal from the button to the text label. So we have to have references to these two things. This push button here is called push button. This label here is called the label. Okay, so let's go back to our widget CPP file and do the connection. Okay, we're going to take a note here, string notation, and we're going to say connect UI push button. Okay, this is how you get a reference to a UI component you have defined in the form. Okay, UI push button is our button. So the signal is going to be clicked. We want to respond when somebody clicks it. Get rid of this bool data type inside. We don't need it by now. Okay, so connect signal clicked. We want to respond when somebody clicks on this. And we want to specify the object that is going to be affected when somebody clicks on that button. And in this case, we want to affect our class here to call the slot that we just defined. Okay, so we're going to pass in this here to mean that it is this object that we are trying to work on. And we're going to put a word slot in capital letters like this. And we're going to specify the change text slot. Okay. And this is really how you connect using the string notation. You pass in a reference to the object that you are trying to capture signals for. You specify the signal you are trying to capture. You specify the object that is going to be affected by that signal, and you specify a method on that object. And that is really our slot. Right now, our signal is connected to our slot. And we can prove that by putting a debug output message in the change text slot here. So let's include the QDebug class to be able to do that. So we say QDebug user clicked on button. Okay, let's run the application. And we want to show the application output here so that we know when somebody clicks. The app is building and it's here. Okay, so let's go back to application output. And when you click on this thing, you see that they say user clicked on button. We are connecting our signal to our slot that we just defined ourselves. This is good. The next thing I want to do is to affect a component on our UI so that you know how to do that too. And it's really not that hard to do. The component we want to affect is the label that we defined right here. Okay, so we go back to the CPP file and say UI label set text. We want to change the text on that label, and we're going to say hello there. So let's run the application again. And when you click on the button, hello there. Okay, so it's saying the message that we specified. Okay, now that we know how to do this, it's a good time to explore the other notations you can use to connect your signals to your slots. So we are going to comment this out. And say that we are going to connect using functor notation, using regular slots. And the way you do that, it's really similar. So you say connect UI push button, and you put a pound symbol, and you put 2 columns, and you specify the signal that you want to capture. You specify the object that is going to be affected by your signal, and you say pound widget change text. It's similar, but they have a few differences, and some can be used in some places, others cannot be used. The thing I want you to notice is that it is pound symbols that you have to put before the class that you want to capture signal for, and before the class you want to use to handle the event in a slot. I hope this makes sense. If we run the application, we're not going to see any change. It's going to be the same thing, but we are doing this in very different ways. Let's run the application. Okay, if we click on the button, it's going to say hello there. And if we keep clicking, it says user clicked on button. And this proves that our slot is being called as a result of our functor notation connection here. Okay, now you know 2 ways to connect your signals to your slots. We're going to see a third way that is going to use lambdas. Let's comment this out. And the way you use lambdas is really like functor notation. Okay, so we say functor notation lambdas. So the way you do that, you do connect UI push button clicked. This is the signal you want to capture. And the similarities to functor notation end here. This is where you have to do the new thing. And what we want to put here is a lambda function that is going to be called when the signal is emitted. Okay, so we put in a lambda function that is going to capture everything by value. It doesn't have any parameter. And the body of this lambda function is going to say something. We're not going to do that right now. We want for now to end this by putting a parenthesis here and a colon. And this thing here is really our lambda function. The entire thing here is the lambda function that is going to respond when the user clicks on your button. Okay. So now we can do the usual thing we did to change the text in the label and say lambda, just to prove that it is this lambda function that is responding to our clicks. So let's build the application to see that we have no errors. No errors. Let's run it. And if you click, it says lambda, proving that it is our lambda function here that is being called. And this covers what we set out to do in this lecture, which is showing you different ways you can connect your signals to your slots. We have seen the string notation to connect your signals and slots. We have seen the functor notation where you are using regular slots to do the job. And we have seen a functor notation where we use lambdas to do the job. You're going to see these notations everywhere, and you're going to choose what works for you, really. It's a matter of preference or seeing what works for whatever it is you are trying to do. Okay, I hope this lecture was informative to you. In the next one, we're going to do a demo application to play with signals and slots a little bit more. I'll see you there.